engaged and informed, bringing you insights, the hottest topics of the moment, and perspectives that matter from the runway to the political arena. We'll talk with Lavi cover it all. Let's get real. Wednesday nights at 8 on WinFM.
Like trains are square and it's the you like that. Don't like you set your page, you set your phone.
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, we're good to one.
Okay. All right.
Let's get real on WinFM. Hi, this is Lavi. Let's get real Wednesday nights at 8 on WinFM. Get ready for an hour of real talk that will keep you engaged and informed, bringing you insights, the hottest topics of the moment, and perspectives that matter from the runway to the political arena. We'll talk with Lavi cover it all. Let's get real Wednesday nights at 8 on WinFM. Welcome to Real Talk with Lavi. How are you doing, St. Kitts and Nevis? A pleasant good evening to you. It is such a beautiful day right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We've been having some showers, some flooding, but the place is beautiful. Once again, welcome to Real Talk with Lavi. This is a show that gives a voice to the voiceless on issues that concern us. This show is a collaboration with WinFM and Lavi Gumbs. The topics will be different, but engage and address the concerns of the people of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and across all boundaries to get to solutions. I am Lavi, and tonight, Yes, I am Lavi, and tonight we are going to be talking about a crucial child safety and welfare panel, and the topic is perversion of justice, defending our children and restoring trust in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have here in our studios, we are featuring some folks from social workers, counselors, and someone from the police, and also of international agencies. If you're just in tune, welcome to be here with Real Talk with Lavi. I just want to say a pleasant good evening to Miss Watley Sutton.
Good evening, Lavi.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
How was your day?
It was trying, but I survived, so that's the important thing.
How was the rain?
Awesome. It's
Awesome,
always good when it
right?
rains, yes.
You had you had snacks? What you pick out on? What you eat?
Unfortunately, it was a busy day in the office,
It was a
so
busy day.
didn't really get a chance to eat much.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for being here. I also want to say it's a pleasure seeing you. I think it's a small place. I don't know. Remember seeing your face at all?
All right.
Yeah. I see you rocking your natural hair as well.
Yes, of course.
Awesome. Awesome. Shelly, they're smiling. I'm into my natural hair, so when I see my sisters, I have to recognize it. I got to also say good evening to Miss Shelly. That's Shelly down there in St. Croix. She's representing the Crisis Council.
Hi, good night, everybody.
Yes. I also got to say a special good evening to none other than Dr. C.G. Walwin, the former Commissioner of Police. But of course, they're going to tell you exactly who they are. They're going to go into details. So let us start with what we have here at hand, Miss Beautiful Watley Sutton. She's a caseworker of the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services.
All right, good night again, Lavi, my fellow panelists, and to those on Radio Land and on Facebook. My name is Miss Glentine Watley Sutton. I am a case manager with the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services. That's the agency that's responsible for investigating all matters of child abuse, reports, neglect, assist families, offer parenting advice, assist the courts in dealing with access and custody matters, work along with the police to bring justice. So you mentioned here restoring justice, bring
Yes.
justice to the victims, the child victims in the Federation. Yes.
Right. How long have you been doing this?
I've been with the department, I'm in my 12th year, so 12 years.
Well, look at you. Your face looks so young. Like you still have that baby face.
Well, when you love what you do,
Yes.
yes, it shows.
Nice. All right. So I will leave the male for last. So good evening to you, Miss Shelley.
Hi, good evening.
How are you doing?
I am good. I am like Miss Watley. It's been one of those days,
Um,
but we are here.
yes. How was your day? Did you had rain down there also?
A little bit this morning, but it cleared up in the afternoon. But today was a busy day. It's always a busy day. When the moon is full and it's coming around, there's all the things that can happen. It does happen. I don't know if the pull of the water from the moon creates a whole lot more trouble than usual, but we make it through. We make it through.
Nice. And I'm gonna have to bring you back to talk about those wonderful raps that you always have. Maybe you could teach us how to rap over here.
Ah, yes, I like to stay connected to my ancestry. So,
Nice. All right, so we saved the best for last. The only man that is on the panel with us tonight, none other than Miss Dr. C.G. Walwin, the former Commissioner of Police to St. Kitts. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Good evening, ladies, and good evening to everyone that's listening. I'm here in Texas, in South Texas. I'm a chief of police here in South Texas. So I want to be a part of this tonight. So thank you for inviting me.
Nice. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Mike, over here? I know you're the former Commissioner of Police, but you want to give us a little short.
Well, yeah, I was born in St. Kitts. As a kid, as a young man, I went to the Virgin Islands. I was a teenager. Helped raise Shelly. I'm her brother. And I went to Houston. I became a cop in Houston. Retired in Florida, and then back in Texas as a chief of police again. I also served in the Virgin Islands as the deputy commissioner of police.
Oh,
So I've been around.
so you was working there when Shelley was there?
Hmm.
Yes, I was there. My last stint in the Virgin Islands, Kelly was there,
So
but I basically raised Kelly. She's my little sister.
I was just gonna ask Shelley if she know you.
Oh yes, very very well. That's he's been Big Brother forever. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I must to the listening audience out there that Shelley and Dr. C.G. Walwyn, they are of Kittitian St. Kitts and Nevis roots background. Shall you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know this is what your third time on the Real
I
Talk with
know.
Lavi.
I'm
So,
saying like everybody should know me by now. I mean, like still we have to go back through that. So I'm Shelly is my nickname. My government name is Shalene Gums. I'm the director of crisis intervention services at a victim advocacy agency. I also own and founded Caribbean Mentorship Program, which helps self sufficiency for people, bridging the generational gap and learning to become better people with a mindset change, unlearning the things that culture has taught us that has been detrimental to us. And so we're 37 countries strong at this point in time. And so I spend a lot of time doing crisis intervention, crisis counseling for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, childhood sexual assault, incest, human trafficking, that kind of stuff. That's my daily work. And I just like to see people progress. So, any way that I am able to help people change their mindset from what would be a victim perspective into being a survivor and a thriver, that is what I do. And that is where my passion is at.
nice. So it is 8:23. You're live with Real Talk with Lavi. And tonight's topic is perversion of justice, defending our children and restoring trust in St. Kitts and Nevis. And the summer break is approaching. So, we have to discover key ways to keep our children safe. So, I think we're in good hands. We're here with the professionals. And I'm going to start with Miss Watley Sutton. She's from the Department of Probation and Child Protection Service. This is my first question to you to kick off the show. To the child, welfare, what are the current challenges in identifying and protecting children at risk of unlawful carnal knowledge and exploitation in St. Kitts and Nevis? And how can community members better support these protective measures?
All right, that's a very good question, dear Lavi.
Thank you.
Unlawful carnal knowledge is definitely one of the issues that the department, working along with the police, have to deal with. One of the major challenges that I would say that we are having when addressing reports of unlawful carnal knowledge, and for those of you who aren't aware what unlawful carnal knowledge is, it's basically having sexual relations with a child under the age of 16. Where we are and what we often struggle with is the community or societal buy-in. We often get the reports of unlawful carnal knowledge through the schools, a few from parents, and a few from concerned citizens. But when the department responds and partners with the Special Victims Unit, we often have a pullback in regards to wanting the victim themselves first of all. We realize that they don't quite understand that what is happening is not right and it's against the law. So the 15-year-old girl that's dating the 21-year-old male, she is in love with him. It's her boyfriend. Although they're engaging in sexual intercourse, we would have explained to her, or we would have a responsibility to explain to her the law. Once you're under 16, you can't give consent. So although you agreed to be involved in this sexual relationship with him, he's committing a crime. And we often have that the victims themselves, these young girls, would um, what should I say, refuse to give the statements, because it means if I give the statements, I'll be sending the one that I love, that I'm infatuated with, to jail. Also, we often have parents of these victims, these young girls, coming to the department and to the police and saying they're not interested in pushing it forward. So there's a lot to do with educating the society and the community in understanding that this is wrong, regardless however they go about making it make sense to themselves in their head. It's wrong, and we need the community and the parents, along with the schools, working with the schools in educating their children, educating themselves, and that's where we come in, because we do a lot of awareness building in regards to child rights and child abuse in the Federation. But to get them to understand that it is wrong, first, that is where we have to start. It is wrong, it's against the law, it's a crime you're committing.
Yes.
So therefore, the perpetrator would have to be brought to justice. And the reports would come in, and then we would hit a roadblock, because then we need that victim, more or less, to give statement, to go to court, to sit in court and say to the judge, yes, this is what happened, that's what was done to me. But we don't usually have that. Recently, we had some legal training with the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs, and that was a question we asked: what could be put into law to more or less enforce these sexual abuse laws, and put some responsibility on the parents and even the child themselves to be a part of the investigation and bringing about this justice. So the societal buying, as I said, the buying within the homes, within the school, and within, well, our young girls themselves, we have to start there. They have to know that it's wrong. If they don't think that they're doing anything wrong, or their boyfriend or partner is doing anything wrong, they're not going to participate in the investigation process. And then without that initial process, the matter cannot enter the court. We can, as you said, restore the justice in regards to child sexual abuse in the Federation.
All right. I know you mentioned an age 21. I know it's once it's over. So what happens if someone is 17, 18?
It's 17, 18 an adult, yes. So 18 dating a 15-year-old, the report would be treated the same. It has to go to, when it comes to sexual abuse matters, the department plays a supportive role, as opposed to when it's physical or neglect, where the police has to spearhead this investigation, and we would offer them the necessary support. So it doesn't matter the age of the perpetrator, all sexual abuse matters has to be reported.
Yes.
And then the police, with our support, would have to do the investigation and gather the necessary evidence to put it before the DPP so that it could go to court. That has definitely raised some questions within the department and within just the discussions between us and the police. You know, when it's a teenager themselves, when we have a 16-year-old dating a 14-year-old and they're engaging in sexual intercourse, we often try to bring in the parents and have that discussion for them to understand what's happening. Because most of the times when we find that there are a lot of our young girls, young people, males and females, who are sexually active and the parents are aware. So they have...
Wait, what you just said, the parents are aware?
Are aware, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure that's what I heard.
Yes. The parents are aware. And it's for them to also be a part of the discussion and realizing that, okay, when you see your teenage girl or teenage boy spending a lot of time on the phone, you pull them aside and you have that conversation.
Yes.
I realize that you have a special someone. What activities or behaviors are you guys engaging in? And more or less start empowering them with the information they need to make wise decisions. Because peddling on that is the fact that we're seeing an increase in STDs among teenagers. So there's a gap with regards to the children are engaging in these types of actions and they're not being empowered with necessary information through the schools, from the parents, from the community. It's okay to pull somebody aside and say to them, I realize you have a boyfriend as a parent to a child or as an aunt or a church member or whatever. Because if they don't have the information, they will act and they will act in risky ways. And that would often bring their health and well-being at risk.
All right. Thank you so much. You surely you know your stuff. Yeah. We don't have a psychologist here, but hopefully I think I'm gonna shoot this one over there to the Virgin Islands. So Shelley, could you explain the psychological impact of child molestation and victims and their families, and what interventions or support programs are most effective in helping them heal?
The impact is that it lasts forever. That's pretty much it. A lot of times, like Miss Watley was saying, children engage in behaviors. They're not really sure of what the behaviors are. They don't know if it's right or wrong. I'll get on my soapbox for a minute because we are not comfortable talking about sex in our community.
Yes.
Right? We don't want to have the conversation. And if we don't have the conversation and their hormones start to act up, they're going to do it. But, it's like Miss Watley said, we have to be able to engage in the conversation. And because we don't engage in the conversation, when something happens, like you have a 15-year-old that gets pregnant because they were having sex and nobody's told them that this is something that can happen, we just expect them to automatically know. The stigma from the community, it's not but until recently that if you were pregnant and a teacher and you weren't married, you couldn't teach anymore. And so we talk about community grooming and all the secrets that we keep. And those things are the things that cause long-lasting effects. Because now I'm ashamed of who I am. I'm ashamed of my child. I'm ashamed of what would happen. I don't understand the difference between intimacy, emotional intimacy, emotional maturity. And so the way I develop a relationship turns into something completely different, right? And that is because we don't address it. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about the fact that when you're going through puberty, your body is going to change. Your hormones are going to kick in. You're going to want to and desire to be touched, and the parameters that should be done in. And so if you have a child that's been molested because they've been violated from a very early age, one of the things that happens most frequently is that they lose their voice. Because all of us has that person that is in the village that nobody's supposed to go by, and nobody says why they're not supposed to go by that person. And they go down there, and it's why you went down there, and it's the victim blaming. Nobody's holding the perpetrators accountable. And so because of that, the child then is permanently affected because nobody believes me, nobody protects me, nobody says anything. And so if I'm not going to be protected, then how am I going to trust anybody with it? And because this is happening and nobody says anything and I have no support, how can I go to the police when the people in my family don't believe me? Right? They're not going to back me up. And if you say anything, what is it going to look like in the family? And we have Caribbean wide, we have an image problem. We're very worried about what other people think about us instead of worrying about the damage that is done.
Amen.
And so the best interventions really is to cut community grooming. We shouldn't be protecting the perpetrators. If somebody has done something wrong, they've done something wrong. Don't just say, well, everybody knows that's how that person is. You just need to stay away from them. No, we need to hold them accountable. We need to hold them accountable. It's like in the Virgin Islands, we just recently got rid, and I don't know if it's a law in St. Kitts or if it's on the books in St. Kitts. So either Miss Watley or maybe even, Dr. Walwyn can let me know. But we literally about a year ago passed legislation that a parent couldn't sign for a 12-year-old girl or a 14-year-old boy to get married to somebody that had sex with them, right? To avoid the person going to jail. which is what Miss Watley was talking about, right? So now we've got it to 18. You have to be a legal adult before you can consent to marriage. So those are the interventions. We need to call the perpetrators a perpetrator. We need to have conversations about sex and don't dress it up, right? Learn the language that the young people are using when they refer to their bodies. Use that. Teach them the correct grammar. Because if I have been molested as a child and I'm 12, 13, and 14, how do I feel going in front of a bunch of adults talking about sex if it's not a comfortable conversation for me or if nobody has had that? And then they're going to ask me what happened. So I'm supposed to stand up and tell you, well, this man took his penis and put it in my vagina. I'm not going to tell a bunch of people that. And so it's going to stop me from being able to testify, right? First of all, that's not the words I'm going to use to describe it anyway. And so as a community, we do need to hold accountable the people that we know are pedophiles and that we know are molesters, regardless of their position. So whether they be the teacher or the bus driver or the person in the church or the police officer or the political person, we need to call them out as they are so that our children feel the need to be protected, or you're never going to get any trust in the agencies.
Wow, very touching and frightening also. Dr. Walwyn,
Yes, ma'am.
I have this for you. Given the disturbing statistics on internet child pornography identified in St. Kitts and Nevis, what steps are being taken locally and internationally to combat digital exploitation, and how can parents and educators better protect children online?
Well, first things first. When I was commissioner in St. Kitts, which has been quite a while, I was approached by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security asking if they could come and work with us in St. Kitts because St. Kitts was the number one country in the Eastern Caribbean that was putting child pornography on the internet. They were making child pornography in St. Kitts and putting it on the internet. And the Department of Homeland Security wanted to come in to work with us to try to help with that. Of course, I left shortly after that. So I don't know what they're doing in St. Kitts, but I can tell you today that with the new administration that we have here in the States, when you come across the border, they will ask you for your cell phone. They will ask you for your laptop. And if you have that stuff on there, you are not going back to St. Kitts. They don't need to have the child to convict you. The law is clear. Child pornography is against the law. I had to tell somebody in St. Kitts one time that they had some girls fighting in St. Kitts, and this guy was walking up behind the girl. I know it's a cultural thing, but I told him that you can't send to me because that is child pornography, and in the States, you will go to federal prison. They don't play with that. And so St. Kitts has a lot that needs to be done in terms of legislation to protect our children. I left St. Kitts 10 years ago, believe it or not. And I'm the one that created the Special Victims Unit. And we created that unit because I got word that a young lady, 13 years old, was molested by her uncle. And she told her grandma, and the grandma asked her if she enjoyed it.
Oh, wow.
And then we had another young man who was teaching his child, I'm going to use the word lollipop, with peanut butter, and the child was 3 years old. So I got with the U.S. Embassy in Barbados. I requested funding to take some officers from gender affairs, from the police department, and we took them up to Dallas for training. And we came back and created the Special Victims Unit, and we saw people started reporting these incidences. I had an employee who was about to be terminated when I was there, and I asked the person who brought it to be terminated to step out the room. And because of my training and experience, I asked her a few questions. And this young lady, as Miss Shirley said a while ago, this lasts a lifetime. This young lady, she was thinking of jumping out of a building. She was thinking about killing the baby she just gave birth to because she was having memories of when her stepfather, her mother left St. Kitts, went to St. Thomas at age, she was 14 years old, a little girl, and the man told her, it's your turn to satisfy me now that your mother's gone.
Oh my
And
God.
that's how she grew up. And she was about to commit suicide one night at the police station, and I had to talk to her, and I sent her to get counseling. I also heard Miss Watley say that the parents don't want to come in and testify or get the child there. What we need, if it's not already the law, we need to let the state become the victim. Here in Texas, when you turn 18, if your parents didn't file the charge, when you turn 18, you can come in and file that charge against that person. He doesn't get away. In St. Kitts, I'm going to stop talking. In St. Kitts, what really bothered me was when I heard someone said after 12, it's lunch. And I asked, what does that mean? And he said, when your child gets to first form, they're age 12, that's when they start molesting those girls. And I know it happened before that, but once they're 12 in St. Kitts, that's when the real molestation begins. And law enforcement needs to get on the ball. And if there's no legislation, that needs to be put in place. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, this is Real Talk with Lavi. It's 8:43. We had started late, so we hopefully gonna buy back. Hopefully they're gonna give us back the time for this timely information that is coming from your professional right here. I'm gonna ask this question. This is gonna be for all.
If I may, Lavi, just allow me.
Sure.
I listened to Dr. Walwyn, and he did indicate that he's not sure what laws we have in place here when it comes to child pornography, but for the Electronic Crimes Act of 2017 that was passed for St. Kitts and Nevis, it's Section 12 deals with child pornography and indicates that a person who knowingly publishes child pornography through computer system produces child pornography for the purpose of publication through a computer system or possesses child pornography in a computer system or on a computer data storage medium for the purpose of publication commits an offense and is liable on conviction on indictment. So we have been making moves here, Dr. Walwyn, and
Nice.
I'm happy to share that in regards to, and
Thank you.
then you also mentioned about crime,
Just
sexual abuse. Yes.
question. You said that we're making moves here, which is good. How is information coming out to the public? Does the public know about this?
This law was there were discussions around the Electronic Crimes Act.
Okay.
So yes, the public are aware that we do have, because even I know there was conviction of sending around a lady's, I think she had nude pictures on her phone, and someone forward that, and then charges were brought. I think that was like 2 years ago
Yes, yes.
against that person. So and child sexual abuse have been made a crime against the state under our new child protection laws.
Beautiful.
We
Beautiful.
step by step we are trying to reach up to these international standards, and to ensure that you don't have to live in the US or in the UK as a child to really feel protected and really feel like the government and the state is on your side and wanting to provide a safe community for you.
All right.
So,
You was gonna ask him something else? before?
No, that's it.
That's
yes, I just wanted to feed him those tidbits.
Yes.
Um,
Well, I must say, right, I like how the discussion is to make everybody just listening, attentive, and so that's very good. And once again, you're on live with Real Talk with Lavi. Thank you so much for being here tonight. If you're just in tune, please get your children, your family. This is very timely because we are talking about child protection and its safety here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And we have people from the professional offices that is here, and this is a perfect time to get them. This is going to be a question for all panelists to answer individually. So I want either one, I think maybe Shelley, to share your insights into how government agencies, social workers, and law enforcement collaborate to create a coordinated approach to prevention, intervention, and rehabilitation.
And that would be the one question that's not for me. And that's because I work for a nonprofit organization that's a victim advocacy agency who kind of approaches, protects, and defends victims against those agencies. Because a lot of times they don't do what they're supposed to do, right? It could be because of resources. It could be because sometimes the laws put them in a place where they're not able to do a lot of the things that they need to do. They're not able to um, deal with the victim from the victim's perspective at the time. All of those agencies, the social work, law enforcement, and the government, they have stringent ways of doing things. And because I work for a nonprofit organization that's a victim advocacy agency, I get to talk to them without having to go through, you have to report this, and this is what's going to happen, and the government is going to be involved. I can get them ready first and then have the conversation. In the Virgin Islands, we don't have a statute of limitation when it comes to sexual assault. And so it doesn't make a difference what age they are. I have a lot of adults who have been children of sexual assault, and they can still press charges. If it happened when they were 5 to 16, they can be 35 and still press charges, because sometimes that is when they're able to talk about it. At this time, their family has disconnected from them, because it's like Dr. Walwyn was saying, when the parents feel like in the situation that he had, when the grandmother asked her if she enjoyed it, a lot of times financial gain comes from the children being sexually assaulted. And so they don't want to report it. They make it the child's fault. And so it's very, very difficult. And Miss Watley, from what she said, runs into that same problem, right? Because the parents don't want to come forward. They're not coming forward because if I come forward and you go to jail, what's the power company down there? How is my electric bill going to get paid?
Yes.
Right? How am I going to get gas?
Yes.
Where am I going to get food?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so we have to talk about those things. And luckily, being from an NGO, I don't have to deal with, you have to do this by the book and by the law and all of these things. I get to confront it and then take the person as a victim advocate, go with them to these agencies and say, okay, here's what the situation is, and be a support for them while they're talking to these other agencies. And intervention can happen. Sometimes it does take the social worker or the government office or the police officer getting out of the cultural norms that we have how you gonna stay there? It happened for you for that long and you ain't tell nobody? How you ain't tell nobody here what's touching you? You must have liked it. You're wearing those kind of clothes. You feel like that's okay? Who tell you that you could wear that? If you wear dress like that, somebody gonna come after you. You don't know that until now? Well, if I'm 12, I'm not buying my clothes, so guess what? You know what I mean? But we don't talk about those things. So luckily for me, I get to talk about those things and go to the social workers and go to the police and go to the government and tell them, these are the parts that you're missing. You're victim blaming children who were obviously introduced to sex, inappropriate behavior at a young age. And so they cannot be comfortable talking to you because, one, you're an adult, right? You look like him. You're the same height. You may wear the same cologne. So I don't feel comfortable talking to you. You look like my mother who told me, well, you just need to keep it quiet because he did do so much things to her. Why you want to break up the family, right? So that's the side that I am on. But the intervention is for us to be able to have the conversations again. And allow, like Ms. Watley and Dr. Walwyn was saying, for sensitivity training. Right? There needs to be sensitivity training that is culturally based, right? You can go to a foreign country or you can go to a different place to learn the structure and the method. But when you come home, the conversations that a Kittian social worker needs to have needs to be in Kittian lingo. I have to be as comfortable. It's like speaking to somebody in English when their first language is Spanish. We have a slang. We talk different ways. We
Yes.
have to have it in those conversations, in those types of ways, so that we are able to bring things to the forefront and make some changes.
I was listening to you that you said that when the child come older, they can go to the state and press charges, right?
Yes, there's no statute of limitations in
Right.
our law against child sexual
Yeah.
abuse, so it could be filed and charges could be brought anytime after the act.
And you know why I'm saying this? Because lately we have seen like people when they're older and we see them, and I'm not going to call any names, and you hear people out there actually defending the
Perpetrator.
perpetrator and saying, oh, well, just because they're probably maybe famous and whatever, and they shame the person and like, oh, that don't happen donkey years and whatever, but they don't know the scars that comes with it, you know. Um, Dr. Walwyn, um, I'm going to ask you to share your insights on the same thing,
Okay.
coming from your experience.
Okay. One in four girls are molested. One in six boys are molested, which means that more boys than girls are molested. And so when the boys are molested, when they go to tell people, the first thing they want to call him is an anti-man.
Mm-hmm. Stigma.
So he don't want to be an anti-man, so he keep him out shut. Speaking crucial now. Our politics is local. So you keep him out shut. But then, without counseling and training, he has the potential to victimize another kid, up to 10 kids. So if you look at the exponentiality of this, for every one boy that gets molested, there's a possibility he'll molest up to 10 other boys, and then each one of those 10 boys will molest up to 10 other boys, all because we're afraid to say what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
We got to protect our children. I was listening to a show on the internet one night, and I don't know if I got the name right. A lady named Miss Carrot, an older lady. She said they used to have a store on 4th Street.
First
I was
Streets.
watching it on YouTube one night, and she was talking about the sexual exploitation of children back when she was a child. And I think she's over 80 years old. So that's how long it's been happening here. While I was commissioner in St. Kitts, I learned something that I didn't know as a young man. Well, I left when I was 13, but I didn't know that. But I found out that there are certain neighborhoods in St. Kitts where this is the norm. People accept it. Over on Nevis, again, I'm not saying what areas, some people accept it as the norm. So we have seen it happen so much that we don't worry about it. They're going to grow up anyway and they're going to forget, but you don't. I can tell you of a story of a young lady, and Miss Shelley said a while ago about the economics of this. I remember these two girls from St. Kitts were on St. Croix living with their mother. The mother was poor, and the 16-year-old got pregnant, and they couldn't say anything because back then we used to be on something called a bond. And if the man get locked up, the bond goes, the mother and the two kids got to go back to St. Kitts, and they already ain't got nothing on St. Croix. They ain't gonna have nothing in St. Kitts. And so the mother sacrificed the daughter. And that is happening in a lot of communities, especially there in St. Kitts. It is happening, and we need to start speaking out. And the police, the DPP that you have now, I have never met him, but I love him because I see that he's trying to do what he can do to ensure that our children are safe. And so kudos to him on his strategy. But in St. Kitts, again, we started that special victims unit because people were molesting children. How can a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old be so sexually active that they end up getting pregnant during the summer? Watch where your children go. Don't trust anybody with your kids. Those are your kids. You don't have to apologize. Ms. Kelly said a while ago, there's always that one house in the neighborhood that we don't want our children to go to. And we all know why, but we don't say. Parents, if you're listening to me tonight, if you're listening to me tonight, listen to your children. Even a clock that is not working is correct at least twice every 24 hours. Your child is not always going to lie. And it's the person that you least expect is the one that's going to molest your child. 1 out of 4 girls get sexually molested. 1 out of 6 boys get sexually molested, and they're afraid to talk because we as grown-ups don't want to believe, or we don't want to cause shame on the family. Lock them up. They shouldn't be doing it.
You know, this is really, this really need the federation. Everybody needs to hear this because when people think of child molestation, they just think it's girls, but it's both girls and boys. All right. While you're there, Dr. Walwin, I'm gonna just ask you this, and then I'll go to Shelley and then to Miss Watley, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Um, from a Actually, we were supposed to have a police officer in here tonight, a local police officer. Unfortunately, they wasn't able to join us. So I'm gonna hopefully see if Dr. Walwin can answer this for us. From a policy perspective, are there gaps or outdated laws that need urgent reform to better safeguard children and support victims throughout the justice and recovery processes?
I can answer part of it, but I'm gonna have to defer to Miss Watley. She did mention that there were some changes already being made, but the issue with protecting our children is to make sure that these laws that we have on the books are being enforced. You can make 100 laws, but if you are not enforcing them, it makes no difference. We had a woman come into the police station in Bastille one day to file a complaint against her husband, well, her boyfriend for beating her. And the police officer, I happened to walk in and heard him telling her, go home and think about it. And if you want to come back later, I'll write the report then. I tell him, no, you're going to take the report right now.
Wait, what you just said? So that was a police officer
It
saying
was a
that?
police sergeant.
It's,
I happened to be walking into the front area of the police station in Bastille. And I heard him telling the lady to go home and think about it if she really want to press charge against the man. Just go home and think about it. And if you decide to come back later, I'll take it. But go home and think about it. I tell him, no, you're going to take the report right now. I have 4 daughters. And I don't like men who beat women. I'll just say you straight up. Okay? I was a cop. I was a sergeant back then in Houston. And we were at a Caribbean party. And this dude from St. Croix just haul off and punch his woman and knock her down in front of me. And I told my officer, says, lock him up. And he said, well, man, why are you locking me up? We went to school together. I said, that's why I'm locking you up, so you won't feel that comfortable doing it in front of me. He never talked to me again, but he went to jail. I don't like men who beat women. And if I was still there in St. Kitts and I find that out and I could do it, I'd lock them up. You got to stop abusing women and most of all, stop molesting children. It's 16 years old. We have to wait till they're 18 in America. You got them at 16. Why are you messing with 12-year-olds? They need to be arrested, and parents need to come out and speak to someone they can trust and get it done.
and Dr. Walwood, while you're there talking about men putting their hand on women, um, this is Real Talk with Lavi, and you will hear people in the Federation comfortably, especially women, Well, if my man ain't hit me, he ain't love me, and the nonsense that they will be saying. And the children are hearing these things.
They are.
Okay, let me tell you something. My wife is a private investigator in Texas, here in Texas. She is a court-appointed investigator for the defense, and she makes a lot of money with domestic violence cases because men over here, it's not just in St. Kitts, believe they could put their hand on women, but the law says you can't do that. And so here in Texas, I don't have a choice. If the elements of the offense are made for domestic violence, you're going with me. And this needs to happen in St. Kitts. That and the beating the children. Excuse me for a minute. I got to drink some water.
No problem. And Shelley, adding to what he said, you know, it have some women like to put their hand on men too.
Yes, 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 she's correct.
They do. But a lot of that comes from us being physically out of slavery, but mentally still in slavery, right? We were taught from the slave trade and colonialism that violence begets fear, and fear gives the other person control. And so abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, domestic violence, all of them they're all from self-control, right? From a lack of self-control. They're all about power and control. Strangely enough, right? You won't find certain people doing certain things with other people. Community grooming is a really, really big thing. And it's something that, I'm working hard on this end to stop. And I know a lot of people that work in, victim services, we're trying to stop it across the board. But we have so many things that make us believe that if I do this, it's going to give me power, which is one of the reasons why, even with police officers or people that have money, people that are in positions of authority, they get away with doing a lot of these crimes because they're in a position of power, and we give them undue respect because of the position that they hold and never look at the person, right? So when it comes to women beating men, it all it, in the years that I've been doing this, and I've been doing this for 30 years, about 12 or 14 years ago, I told our police department here on St. Croix, you're going to start to have a lot of female perpetrators in a little bit. Because what happens is when, just like Dr. Walwyn said, when the women come and say, this man beat me, or this man has done that, or this man is stalking me, and he gets away with it, and here it's a misdemeanor, which means he can pay $101 and not go to jail, and he can come back home, and they're not picking him up. What's going to happen after a while is that I'm going to feel like I don't have a choice. And in order for me to protect myself, the next time you come around me, I'm going to bust you behind. Unfortunately, women are going to tell the police, yes, I beat him. And so they're going to go to jail. Not the men. They're not going to say, no, man, she fall down. I just hit her a little bit just there. No, but we as women, because they're tired. And so, yes, they're going to beat them. And when it comes to if he doesn't hit me, he doesn't love me, that's something that we were taught.
Yes.
And it's the re-education that we need to do.
Can I say something?
Sure.
It ties into what Shelley just said. I knew a lady in Texas. She was telling me a story. Said on St. Croix, her husband used to beat her. And they moved to Houston. And one Saturday he went out and he came back in. She was cleaning fish. And she said when he opened the garage door, she grabbed a knife. And she was waiting for him to put his hands on her because she was going to stab him to death.
Wow.
And he walked right by her and went straight to the bedroom. She said, but that day, I was prepared to take him out because I was tired of the butt whoopings. So what you're saying does have merit.
Alrighty. Shelley, I'm going to ask you this question. What role can schools and youth organizations play in educating children and adolescents about personal safety, warning signs of abuse, and trust reporting channels?
They're very, very important. If education happens in schools, and among peer counselors, you know what I mean? I think it would be very, very essential for us to cut down the numbers, because guess who's not talking to them about this stuff? Right? But what it would mean is that the people that go into the schools to do outreach or have the conversations, they would need to be able to gear it towards them. A lot of children come to school from being molested. A lot of children come to school from watching their parents fight, and from watching their mother getting beat, and from having to clean up, and from becoming the parentified child because their mother or has a lot of children and they have them back to back, because that is one of the forms of abuse. If I can keep you pregnant, then you can't leave because you're in a situation where you're unable to move because you're not financially independent. So they have to understand that they're coming from what we want them to understand is their life, and saying that their life is not right. So having the outreach and the education would be essential, but the training as to how to have the conversation, understanding that they also have to go back into the home where all of this is happening, is important. But building a safeguard and having the agencies be open about a lot of the stuff that goes on, telling them what the truth of what happens, right? So you don't want an agency like Miss Watley's to come in and say, "Oh, we're going to help you if we do this," and then they don't look at the whole scope of the problem. It's all right to take the child out of the home, but where are you putting them?
Yep.
Right? Understand that if you remove a child from a home before because they've been sexually molested and you put them into a home where they're uncomfortable, they're in a foster care. So now they're now living with strange people. And the majority of the times, the people that molest them are people that they know. But they're in a home with strange people, in an atmosphere and an environment that they don't know. And there's more damage that gets done, especially if there's not constant communication. And if you have a large caseload, sometimes that's hard to do. And that's where school, talking to them, being able to keep them on point, helping them to know that they have a support system would be very, very helpful.
All right, so Miss Watley, you're representing the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services. I'm going to ask you this. How can the public overcome the stigma and silence that often surrounds cases of child abuse, and what community-driven initiatives have shown promise in changing societal attitudes?
Thank you, Lavi. In regards to how society can overcome the stigma of addressing or facing child abuse, we have to start with being comfortable talking about sex.
Yes.
We're not. We don't talk to our children about it. Shelley would have mentioned, teaching children about the body parts, the correct names for the body parts, and if you realize, coming down to where children are in regards to what they refer to as sex or as kissing and so forth. But we have to first get comfortable talking about sex. We don't. And when we hear other persons talking about sex or talking to their children about sex, we have that awe. So we have to start there. In regards to child sexual abuse, we have to go back to the beginning. We have to see that it's wrong. We have to.
Yep.
And it has to start, one, with the children, but also with the parents on the church pulpit. On shows like these are community initiatives that gets the message out there.
Yes.
These different NGOs and community groups that we have, it has to be an interagency partnership all around, from the church to the school to the home to the government
To the community.
and to the community in regards to changing the view or our current view on child sexual abuse. You would have mentioned earlier the gaps. What are the gaps that we're seeing? One of the gaps that, it's huge. A child is anyone under the age of 18, but you allow a child who is 16 to be able to give consent to sex. 17-year-old can give consent to sex. So there's some consistency, some gaps there in terms of the laws. I know right now the current administration is looking at fixing those inconsistencies when it comes to child laws, especially with the age of consent. So we're looking, as a department, we're looking forward to seeing that change pretty soon. We spoke about the enforcement, and I started my discussion talking about children and not being able to prosecute because we don't have the information from the victim. What I would have witnessed, and I will share this story. What I would have witnessed years ago, because one of our responsibilities within the department is to attend family court, sitting in family court, and offer the necessary guidance to the magistrate, and assist with custody and access matters, sometimes maintenance matters as well. But I remember a lady would have brought a man for child support, and the magistrate sat on the bench, and it's pretty obvious there's a huge age gap. I think it was 2 children. And then the magistrate was like, "What is the age of the children?" And the magistrate said, "What is your age?" And he said to the man, "What is your age?" And she basically brought it out that you would have been sexually involved with this child, with this woman when she was a child. And I stood up because I wanted to see what would happen, and nothing happened. So there has to be some follow through. Dr. Walwyn talked about the enforcement. If we're not getting the perpetrators when the victims are children, we're going to get them when the victims are adults. Because no, we don't need your statement, because we have a child. You just stood up in court and said, "Yes, Your Honor, I am the father of that child." That's you admitting to having sex with this lady 5 years ago. So when that maintenance matter should be adjourned, and as he exits, he should be served or charged with child sexual abuse, because that would allow us to get beyond needing the victim's statement. We know this is your child. You just admitted that as you're the father of this child. The mother was 15, 14 when she gave birth to this child. You would have committed a crime. There's no other way. So we need that follow through, that enforcement of the laws, even when our victims are now adults, and even without their consent at that point, because at that point we don't need you. We have the child as the evidence. All right. So the gaps, we are working. We are having the discussion with our partner Ministry of Legal Affairs, as well with the police. We work well with Special Victims Unit. Dr. Walwyn, you would be glad to know that. We have both a good professional relationship with the officers there, and like us, they do all that they can to see justice, see perpetrators be brought before court, and justice be served on those that they would have harmed. So we would continue as a department and as a ministry to advocate, because advocacy is huge on our mandate for child rights, and a child right to not be abused, a child right to feel protected in the home. And I know, Shelley, you spoke about foster care, and you would be happy to know that even within our department, our department is strategically structured, where we do have a unit specifically that deals with children in care. So the follow-up, the having the child know who their placement officer or child protection officer within the out-of-home placement unit is, having that regular contact with the school, with the home, and even with the birth parents, allowing them to have some connection with their birth family. So it's not always ideal to take a child outside of the home, but sometimes it's necessary. The man cannot leave because he pays the bills. The mother is not going to leave because that's her boyfriend. So therefore, I understand you want to be home with mommy, and it comes again to a lot of education. We do have the National Counseling Center. That is one of our partner departments within the ministry. So here is where we would engage the counselor to help us work with the child through the trauma of the separation, and allowing them or getting them to understand that this is so that I can protect you. You're not protected, you're not safe in the home. I've always said to my clients, I prefer to know that I'm overreacting than not reacting at all, because if I would not react and I find out something happened to you, that would weigh on me. And before I put myself onto that psychological pressure, like, for your safety, I don't feel safe. I don't feel like you're safe in that home. So therefore, I would have to remove you. And we do have some very dedicated. I mean, May is foster care month. We use the month to basically celebrate our foster families, advocate to get more foster parents to come on board, and to just let the community and the country know the role and importance that foster care plays in protecting our children, because we can't leave them in the homes. All right, so it's very important that we work together, one from, and then we also have a very good partnership with the schools as well. So the schools know who our foster children are. They see something they're not comfortable with, they're gonna call us up, they're gonna meet with the child, they're gonna let us know. They're our eyes and ears when the child is in school. And through the dedication of our foster parents, those who are currently on the program, they have our number. They contact us if they think that there's something concerning, they realize that there's some change, they're gonna contact us. So we're making moves. I like to say that we're making moves here, especially within the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs, in regards to protecting the most vulnerable um, people in society, our children, the boys and the girls.
Yes.
And one of the other things that, I mean, we could talk about gaps. The the reports, we have reports where here is where ministries and the governments also need to act, because we would have a report dealing with child sexual abuse matter against a teacher. The teacher may have not been taken to court, convicted, but we have the report. That alone should be grounds for dismissal. But no, the teacher is moved from one school to the other. And then they take that along, because I know of teachers, and I'm sure we know of people within the community, and that is why, Shelley, you said areas. We know who our perpetrators are, who our career pedophiles are, and they're just basically being moved around in schools, moved around to communities, and women. We have to take a responsibility as well. Know the men that we are bringing into our children's lives, for one. Because St. Kitts is small. I know you said it's small and you've never seen me, but it's small. So I know you. I know you by name. I know you
Yes.
by face.
Yes.
So we know people. And it's very easy for me to say, Lavi, you're from St. Peter's. Me and you are good friends. This guy from St. Peter's, tell me something about him. Right? And then the shushu's happen. We hear the shushu's. So I have known parents who knowingly walk into relationships with pedophiles, having female child,
Yes.
especially. Like,
Yeah.
why would you do that? You're putting your children at risk.
All right. We have someone on the line. Welcome to We'll Talk with Lavi.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening to you and the guests, all the guests.
Good night.
I know you guys want to get, I'm listening to the program, right? And I'm going to probably shoot this at the Dr. Walwyn. I noticed, right? I don't know if you guys mentioned anything about the sex offenders list. Do we have one down in the Virgin Islands? And the lady locally from St. Kitts, unless she's saying that they're making moves. Are there a sex offenders list locally there in St. Kitts?
I was going to ask that question.
Are they working on that?
I was going to
Well,
ask that question. Hold on, Lavi.
sorry.
I was going to ask that question when we got a little further. On my desk, okay, I'm a chief of police. I'm at a college right now, and I have on my desk five sex offender reports because they want to go to college, but they got to register if they're coming on this campus.
Yes. As a
Okay?
sex offender.
So I was going to ask that question, but he first me on it, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
And,
The Virgin Islands does have a sex
Dr. Walwyn,
offenders list. It's on the Department of Justice website.
Okay, got you. Back at Dr. Walwyn, we know in the states, right? Across states, we share information And what if someone is a sex offender in the United States and they move back into the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis? Especially, I don't want to crack on the deportees, but whether you're a deportee or just a person that moves back to the Federation and you have that record in the United States, how they will know anything about that person locally in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis? And I have one other question. Back at the data again. In the States, when a lady is abused by a man in the home and it's domestic violence, right? Whether it's sexual or just someone beating up on the lady, like you say, we don't like that as men. Um, when it's time to go to court and the lady retracts, does the we know in the states the state will pick up a case like that, but locally down in St. Kitts, right? I just want the person who represents them locally, the lady. Can she say if a lady withdraws from a case like that, does the state picks it up locally in St. Kitts? I know in the states will do that, but I want to know if that's the case in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I listen off the air.
All
That's it
right.
for me for the night. You guys have a good one. Thanks.
Thank you for calling.
Let Miss Watley answer first, and I'll answer second.
All right. I unfortunately I don't have the answer to that.
Okay.
I know that child sexual abuse matters or child abuse matters are a crime against the state. I would have to speak to my colleagues in gender affairs to see whether or not there if a matter is brought to the police and when it's time to prosecute and go to court, if the lady retracts, if there's anything that can be done to see that the matter goes forward. So I could shoot a message to my director now of gender affairs, so I could definitely give the caller an answer. He spoke about the sex offenders list, and that is something that we have had discussions around within the ministry in terms of changes that we would like to see and how we could go about. So this would be a partnership with National Security, Ministry of Legal and Justice Affairs, and the Social and Development and Gender Affairs Ministry. I know within our department we began, usually when a report is given, we keep the client's name, the child victim's name, victim's parents, and sometimes we don't record the perpetrator's name to keep it so that it could follow through in the system. And that is a discussion that within the management team, we would have already said that that is something that we need to start doing. And I know for now, anyone that wants to go and work in child care agencies, daycares, and so forth, they have to come to the department to get a child abuse clearance. And that's basically we checking our records to ensure that this person would have never been reported. So we do have a mechanism that we could adapt and carry across, but to actually develop the sex offenders list so that this person, wherever they move, whichever community, they have to report to the police station and so forth. That is something that we're looking forward to working with.
So they will do that for
The
teachers too?
national. Well, as far as if you're on a sex offenders list, you can't be a teacher.
Yeah.
That's how I feel, and that's the department stance. Like if a report was made against you, and even whether or not you were convicted in the court of law, that should be grounds for termination.
Would that be even if you want to apply for a job, like for teaching job? Let's suppose if you're gonna.
No, just in childcare for now. But it would
Okay.
definitely that's something that we would be able to expand it to if you want to join Ministry of Education as teachers,
Right.
as a teacher.
Okay, Dr.
You want me to
Warren?
answer now?
Yes.
Okay. I spent time as a detective in Orlando with the Orange County Sheriff's Office as a sexual offender detective. I would go out every month and make sure they were registered. And if they were violating, they had 7 days to register. If they violated, they went back to jail. In St. Kitts, I introduced that while I was there, but it didn't go anywhere because they said even if they're a sex offender in the States, when they come to St. Kitts, they haven't committed a crime. So they can't do that. And I sat there with my hands shackled because I saw they were starting to have rapes in Sandy Point and up the village. And I have an inkling, but I can't do anything. So what I did was I started bringing rape kits in. I got the Department of Justice to give us rape kits, and we had the nurses at the hospital trained. So whenever there was an allegation of a rape, we would have that done, and then they would send the stuff off. I don't know what is being done right now as far as that goes, but because they didn't commit a crime on St. Kitts, they just let them walk away and forget about them. So
All
that's it.
right, so as we come
Oh,
to,
one quick question. Miss Watley, when before I left St. Kitts, every prisoner that went to the jail, to the prison, they once they were convicted, they would take DNA samples. Do you know if they still do that, and do you know where those are stored?
Oh, this would be another question that I won't be able to answer, Doctor.
Okay, all right, thank you,
Yes.
okay, as
thank
we
you.
come down to wrap up this wonderful, very important and timely discussion, I want to ask the public to go to the Real Talk with Lavi on Facebook page. You can also go to the Department of Gender Affairs, Affairs page. WhatsApp or text your ideas on what you all think of the immediate priorities and long-term goals that St. Kitts and Nevis should focus on to ensure a sustained reduction in child exploitation and to promote a culture of vigilance and care for the nation's children. And I'm saying this because I do have my social media. A lot of us go on social media, and I think that I can't tell people what to do, but I'm using this time to, use your time wisely, and why not share some information and go on my page or persons that you know that you can get the message out, because this is how we can also help the department and our country to help protect our children. I know right now social media can be a distraction for many, but I know that on the Real Talk with Lavi, this is a voice for the voiceless. And I would never forget where I come from and my upbringing with my values and my morals. Yes, sometimes I might, as someone will say, maybe step out of line, but I just think that sometimes it's okay to have fun, but having fun, at the end of the day, it has something named values and morals. And I just want to make sure that with the Real Talk with Lavi that we can, continue to have a positive direction with this show to be here in St. Kitts and Nevis, not just the voice for the voiceless, but the voice for everyone and being able to have persons out there in certain department that can come and share the information with us, because this is how, as Miss Watley said, it needs program like Real Talk with Lavi and other programs, because this is how the message is going to come out. We need to touch on every single households in St. Kitts and Nevis. And if this is the way to do it, we'll talk with Lavi. Welcome all to bring whatever positive on this show. This show is to give information and, as I said, to help build and educate our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We do not do the debates. It's all about discussion and having a conversation and the back and forth. If you notice, I am also trying to improve by not over talking when somebody else is talking. So I wanted to tell you guys thank you so much for being here tonight. I think I'm going to start with those on the internet right now. Miss Shelley, any final words?
Yes. help Miss Watley and them, help St. Kitts
Please.
and Nevis Federation, and stop protecting the perpetrators. If you know somebody does something, if they touch somebody and they've been doing it, don't protect them. The community grooming has to stop. We cannot keep covering up for them. Because if we keep covering up for them, it's going to keep happening. And if you see a girl that's 10, 11, 12, 8, 9, and she's walking around, she can't be fast and she can't be looking for it. Somebody's raping her. And call it what it is. And the last thing, get comfortable talking about uncomfortable situations, right? If we don't start to talk about the things that so easily put us in a place of hurt and pain and trauma, it's going to continue. Talk about sex, talk about domestic violence, talk about rape, talk about nepotism, talk about all the things that are causing us pain. And so we can become a better community, or we're going to stay exactly where we are.
Thank you so much, Shelley. I truly appreciate you being here. Dr. C.G. Wallman, any final words that you would like to share?
I would like to say to the police, thank you for the job you're doing. But as you heard tonight, we need to do a whole lot more. If I can do anything to help you guys in St. Kitts, let me know. I have resources and I'm willing to do that. And finally, just want to extend condolences to the rest of my family on St. Kitts. As you said, I was born in St. Kitts, even though I wasn't raised there, but I had a sister who died today in St. Kitts. So to the family on St. Kitts, my sister Hyacinth Manning, she lives across from that little school right there. I forget what they call it, but right in Taylor's, Avec. She lives across from Avec. She passed away today. So my
Oh,
condolences to the rest of the family.
and my condolences to you and your family, Dr.
Thank you.
Wallman. Thank you so much for being here. And last but not
Thank you.
least, Miss Watley Sutton. You have any final words?
Yes. Thanks for the plug, Shelley. We want all the help that we could get. The I just want to last year, 2024. I want to give a shout out, more or less, to those persons who make child matters or business of children their business. Last year we received 243, I think, reports.
Nice.
And without these reports, unfortunately, we are a staff of 17 that lives in different communities. We can't be everywhere, we cannot see everything.
Yes.
So our eyes in the schools, our eyes in the communities, our eyes in the homes, we thank you, because without those reports, we can make the initial step to protect our children. And for those of you who know of situations that should not be happening, we know, we you know, your next door neighbor to a family or a mother, and you would see this man come in and the mother is not home, but he goes into the home. Who does he go to? We're encouraging everyone to make child matters, especially child sexual abuse matters, your issue, and speak out. There's too much like, oh, it's not me, or they ain't none of my business. And it doesn't matter. If my thing is we shy away because we go like, oh, and then she gonna know it's me. So if she knows you, yeah, she knows you, and you should look her in the eye and say yes,
Yes.
because I am a community member and I have a responsibility to uphold the moral code within my community. So I want to encourage, those um, within my federation and outside, to know that you have to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves, the children, and make the reports. The department, we have an on-call number. Our 24/7 number is 662-6833, and that would put you on to an officer who would respond, who would answer and respond and guide and help you protect a child in need. Or we're located on Victoria Road in the green two-story buildings opposite Medical Associates. You could walk in there, you could make reports anonymously, or you could make reports boldly and say, I'm Glentine Watley Sutton, I live this way and I see this happening, and you guys should go and investigate it. Because again, we can't be everywhere. So, and this goes into the schools, the teachers. We do have mandatory reporters. Our laws hold people accountable for reporting. And those are people who deal with children, the schools, the doctors, the hospitals. They are obligated to report. So for those who don't fall within that mandatory scope, you still have a responsibility. Raising broken children means what for your community when they get adults? Like it's not a community that we are hoping or we would see blossom if we have this generation of broken children coming up with all this trauma of abuse and neglect. So we have a responsibility to keep saying it's beautiful, keep saying it's people beautiful, and keep our children safe. So I just want to ask everyone to work with the department, come on board with the department, and help us by reporting any suspected cases of abuse, and we will do what we are obligated to do by law in ensuring that children are protected.
Well, thank you very, very much. I really thank you guys for taking the initiative to come here and educate myself along with the public with such a timely information and perversion of justice, defending our children and restoring trust in St. Kitts and Nevis. I am Lavi Gumbs. Next week, we are going back into the entertainment, and we are going to have our guests, our international stars, none other than Dijon. And we're gonna have his manager, Scratchy, or he's a promoter, and those guys just came off of a tour with Byron Messiah, so he's going to be in here with Lavi, and I'm just going to let you guys know this, that next week that they're going to be here, and then the following week we have some really good guests to line up. So I think if you haven't heard of Real Talk with Lavi, well, we are onto something, and we're onto something great, and really want to be a part of making St. Kitts positive, moving into a positive, vibrant, happy direction. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, and thank you so much.